back to another unfiltered and unapologetic episode. I hope you all have been enjoying all of our most recent episodes. If you have not tuned into those, you should set aside some time and do so. And if you have listened to them, please leave your review and rating. Like when you're on the Apple, leave the rating, or Spotify. It is greatly appreciated. We are really appreciative to have such purposeful and intentional guests take time out of their day to pour into you all. With the economy the way that it is, I think it is important for us to have a serious chat about ways we can invest into our future. Today we have Alyssa Rodriguez. Please give our listeners a little introduction of who you are.
I'm so excited to be on this. I told my husband, leave me alone. I'm going to be a guest on a podcast. Okay, this is serious. But my name is Alyssa. I am from South Jersey. I have 2 kids. I've been a stay-at-home mom for almost 2 years now. At first, I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom, but then eventually I was like, you know what? If I'm going to take this time off I have to be home, I have to raise my kids, then I'm going to also invest in myself and try to progress and benefit our future and stuff. So that's why I started this road to financial freedom is what they try to call it. So I've been so I've just been basically trying to get our monthly expenses down enough so that I can continue being a stay-at-home mom and not be paycheck to paycheck and still be able to go to the thrift store. But I have a YouTube channel, and my YouTube channel, I basically do a lot of DIY home decor on a budget, and I talk about motherhood and basically everything that I love in just one bubble, which I love.
First of all, I want to say thank you for coming on here.
Thank you for asking me to be on here. I'm so excited.
You're literally killing it on your socials. I've only been following you for a short amount of time, and I can see your growth in that amount of time.
Yay.
I think it's been about a month or so, which is crazy, how fast it's going. I even noticed the way that you have your Instagram set up, is slowly changing. It's like becoming more professional. And I just want to say I'm so happy for you that you're chasing your dreams and you're accomplishing them.
Thank you.
So what are some of your main goals now with what you're trying to do?
My main goals right now, I'm just trying to provide, at least come up with income streams so that I can incorporate financially as well as my husband. Right now, he's the only one that's working, and he covers all of the bills, everything. But I was so used to being a provider myself. I was so independent. When he met me, I had my own apartment. I was all that about independent. We could do whatever guys could do. We could do a better type of mentality. So it was very humbling having to stay home and let him just take that reins fully. I mean, now I'm listen, baby, you could take care of me as long as you want. But I still want to provide financially because it's in my bones. So about a year ago, I wanted to start a YouTube channel forever, but I didn't have the equipment. I didn't have a computer, and you needed my computer. I couldn't even download iMovie because it was that old. So I'm I don't want to invest $1,500 on a new laptop just for a side thing that may or may not go well. So then I took my husband. He was just buy it. Just buy it. You've been talking about this forever. Just get it. And I'm okay. So then YouTube was my first goal, was getting monetized, which I just got monetized 3 weeks ago. I think it was 3 weeks ago. I finally got monetized, which income stream wise, for YouTube, it's not much right now because I'm still on the smaller end, but it's something. I'm excited to even get $100 check at the end of the month. I'm ooh. You know what I could do with $100? I could do a lot with $100, actually. But, so that was one of my main goals. So then now my goal for that is just to continue to be consistent. But I'm hoping I just started to launch my business. Oh my God, I completely forgot. I just officially launched my business, She Did That LLC, where basically I'm helping other people who are on a budget decorate their homes. So I do anything from redecorating or designing a space for them, or creating accent walls with woodwork designs, a board and batten wall, slat wall, whatever. So that was another main goal of mine, was to start that. And that just started, but I'm slowly creeping into, I've had maybe 3 or 4 clients so far, but even if I only do 1 or 2 clients a week, I realize it is still a lot of work. So I'm hoping to get that all managed, and figure out my system there. And then I don't know, I kind of like too many things, and I can't just stay focused and just concentrate on like one thing at a time. I try to do way too much and like overwhelm myself. But so right now I'm just focusing on like my business and trying to get that straight. But I need to start making enough to get a babysitter, because I feel like as soon as I get a babysitter during the day for like 2-3 hours, I'm like, I'll be straight. That's all I need. It's just like 2-3 hours to concentrate and I'll be straight. So that's my struggle right now, is trying to find a babysitter.
Well, congratulations on monetized, because that was one of your goals, and you accomplished that in less time than most people do, honestly.
Oh my gosh, I know, 10 months, and I can't believe it. And it's literally because of my basement videos. I've literally become the basement girl or the shelf girl.
But also, you've been like so consistent for those 10 months. Like,
yeah, I tried.
Like, disciplined with your videos, and YouTube videos are a lot of work.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so let's go back in time. And how did you and your husband purchase your home with a low credit score? And I know you do have a YouTube video about this, so if anybody wants to watch the full video, they can. But just give us a little insight on how you did that.
Yes. So basically, we lived with somebody. We lived with my grandparents at the time, and we were like, okay, we're not gonna move. We had moved like 10 times, like prior to that. Like we were like, okay, we're done. We're not gonna move anymore. We're just gonna stay here, save money. And then I got promoted to a manager at the job that I was. So we were able, like our income like doubled at that time. We're like, okay, we're living with somebody, we don't need all this money. And I'm like, now it's the time that we can save. So it took about 4 months to save the amount of money that we needed for the down payment. And I grabbed all the numbers exactly, but so it took about 4 months. But how we saved that money was, we did two things. One, we used this whiteboard. This whiteboard has gone with us for like 4 years now. We used a whiteboard and we would write out all of our expenses, which at that time, it wasn't much as far as bills, but I had like racked up so much credit debt from when I was single by myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate credit cards. Credit cards are the devil to me. I'm like, I refuse to get another credit card, because I just, for someone who like loves financials and loves budgeting and stuff, credit cards are like my Achilles heel. Like I don't know what it is. So I had racked up almost like $4,000 in credit card debt, which I was only getting paid like $13 an hour. So at that time, I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to pay this off. Like, so they told me when I first went to go pre-qualified, he was like, you have to pay all this off. This is all unnecessary expenses, and you're not going to be able to get approved for a house that you're actually going to like. You're not going to get approved for a certain amount for a house that you're actually going to like. Like it's going to affect your debt to income ratio. So I was like, okay, so we were setting aside like $1,000 every week and just putting it into a different account. So my like advice that I always give anybody who's like asking like, oh, how did you save money? And I'm like, we created a savings account it was in our same bank, but it was just strictly a savings account that we could only put money into, and we couldn't take money out of unless we went in person. So we didn't have a credit card attached to it. We didn't have any kind of online banking available for that account. The only way to take money out was we had to actually go in and take it out in person. So that created an inconvenience for us, which helped with us not to touch the money, because it wasn't such an easy access to just transfer money in and out. And then it was easy because when we logged into our bank account, it was not on our screens at all. So we couldn't see how much money was in there, what was available, what was not available. Like we couldn't do anything to that account other than transfer money into it. So we just kept doing that. And then eventually I think we got up to $10,000 or $11,000 in saving money within the 4 months. So we used almost $4,000 to pay off all of my credit card debt, but I left balances on there. They told me to leave balances. But even with that, my score before starting that was like 565, around there. And then after I did all that they wanted me to do, I was still at 582, and it would not budge I felt like it was forever. I'm like, why is this not moving? It was like 2 months and it would just not move at all. And the guy the realtor we were talking to said that his bank only approves you if you're at a 620 minimum. So he was like, I can't help you guys. You guys are still not where you need to be. At this point, we were working with him for like 6 months in total prior to us even saving money. And I'm like, I don't know what else to do. So I had gotten this notification on Facebook that said this local realtor was having like a walk-in event. Like it's one of those like little events that you just go to, like maybe somebody will walk in, maybe somebody won't, where she was going to have a broker, someone from the brokerage be there too. And they were going to tell you exactly what your score is, exactly how much you could potentially get approved for. Or they could pre-qualify you on the spot and then you just go from there. But I had known this realtor because she actually was the realtor who helped me get into my very first apartment. And so I followed her like ever since for no reason. So when she posted, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, she seemed really nice. Let me just go. I definitely was cheating on my realtor. But I was like, this guy said he wasn't gonna be able to help me until 620. And I'm like, I'm stuck at 580. Like, I need some help. And he's not giving me any tips. He's not like telling me what I need to do. He just kept saying, oh, just keep paying off your stuff, keep paying off. And I'm like, no, I need more than that. So I walked into this place and she like opened it up. Like my husband's credit was not happening. He was like stuck in the 400s. And it was like, and it was, now we know why. It was student loans that we didn't even know existed that were like holding him back. And like, now I'm like, dang, we definitely could have had that resolved, but it is what it is. It worked out because now we got the house only under me. So when I went in there, we got pre-qualified and she was like, the bank that we work with, what can approve you at 580. And she was like, you're at a 582 right now. Your income is good. Your debt to income is good. You already paid everything off. And she was like, we can give you a pre-qualification letter right now. And like, let's start looking for houses. And I'm like,
What? Wow.
kidding me? I'm like, is this I just talked to the other guy yesterday. He was like, nope, can't help you. Like, you can't buy a house without 620. And then now I'm realizing it's because he only likes to work with that bank. So I guess they have some kind of agreement that they only work with each other. So unless you're at a 620, he wasn't willing to help us. So he was willing to let us like just keep, struggling for another 6-7 months. And I'm like, no, like we need a house right
now. That is not having like your client at your best interest.
No, like not at all. And I'm like, and if he knew that there was another bank, we could have still gone through him and then worked with the other bank, but he didn't want to. So I was like, I'm bye. I'm like, she gave me, literally, I walked out with the pre-qualification letter. And he's like, you don't have to do anything else. All we have to do is just make sure you don't try to go and buy a car or like do some crazy expense or something that's going to hit your credit within the next 2 months, because now they ask for all your bank information, where's the money going to and all this stuff. And he was like, just as long as you don't do any of that, I'm like, you're fine. And your score should go up too. And if your score, the only reason why they wanted you to be so high in your score is basically for the interest rate. So we did get killed on the interest rate because our score was so low, but we refinanced 2 years later. And then I was able to get the interest rate I could have gotten if my score was good at that time. But I'm like, what's 2 years of me paying? It was only like $50, mind you. It was like a $50 difference. I'm like, what's 2 years of me paying an additional $50 a month for me to actually be in my own home versus I don't know how much longer I would have had to wait if I was stuck with this guy and my score wasn't going to a 620. And by then, our house was definitely not going to be on the market because this house, it was crazy. They approved me for 150. I think my income was 40,000. My salary at that time was 40,000, but I was only at that job for like 4 months. 4 months before I got the pre-qualification. So it was like 6 months. So I had enough of the 3 months because they go back 3 months on your bank statements. So you need to have that income for at least those 3 months. But it was still technically considered sales, and that's like the realm that I was in. So it was fine. So I didn't have to be at the job for 2 years, which is another thing. People think you have to be at the same job for 2 years in order to be able to qualify for the house. But as long as it falls under the same like category of job, then it's okay. So my income was $40,000. And then they approved me for $150,000 loan. This house was listed at like 160. And we were like, oh, that sucks. Like, it's not, within our thing. Like, what are we going to do? But they tell you that you're either approved for $150,000 for like the house, or a $1,350 mortgage per month. So the numbers can change depending on the taxes in that area, depending on like the different types of add-ons that include like that go into the quote of like the house or whatever. As long as the mortgage doesn't exceed $1,350, then I could still qualify for it. So even though the house was listed at 160, we bid 163 because we were going up against 2 other people. And then after closing costs and all that stuff, we ended up taking out a mortgage of $170,000, but our mortgage payment was still $1,340. So it still fell below that range, even though we technically took out $20,000 more. So that's another thing. So even if they tell you a certain amount that, oh, you're only approved up to 150K, it doesn't matter. You could still look at something that's 160, 170, because there's other numbers and other factors that go into it that could still be within your budget. What they don't tell you, it goes up like every year. I'm like 1,500 right now, and I'm like, they lied, but okay.
The perfect example of don't sit around and wait just because somebody told you something. Get up and actually like make sure what they're saying is accurate.
Yeah, double check.
Still be waiting around right now.
Right. Because listen, my score has not gotten any better, even though I'm like, oh god, nothing else.
Do you use Experian?
Yeah, so I did the Credit Karma app, and then I had the Experian app, and then I had one more, but they always go by, I'm pretty sure they always go by Experian. What's the other one? It's a Experian, TransUnion, and
but with Experian, do you have like your bank account hooked up to it?
No.
Because okay, so you should like do that or look into it, because my husband's credit was not budging, but we found Experian and they get your bank account information, and what they do is they add all of your, like, say you have Netflix, say you have cable bill, phone bill, like all of that, Hulu, they take that from your bank account and see that you pay every month, and they add that to your credit score. It like boosts his credit like crazy, because they add up those little things that you're paying every month anyway.
Right, and you're doing the on-time payment, so that could only help. Right.
Yeah. Oh. So what were your numbers like saving up? You said $1,000 a week, right?
Oh yeah. So we saved $1,000 a week.
What did that leave you guys with for like other things? Because that's like, at least for me, that's like impossible. But so for other people, I feel like that budget to save $1,000 a week would also be impossible. But if you're gonna sacrifice for so many months because you really want something, you can do it. But what did that leave you guys with for like?
No, that's tough. No, it's tough, especially if you're already in like an apartment or something and you don't have the chance to live with somebody. So we lived with my grandparents, so we weren't paying any rent or anything. We weren't paying any bills. The only thing we had was our car payments. So it was like we probably maybe had like $600 a month of like actual bills, and then the rest of it was cash. So I think at the time I was taking in like maybe $1,400 every 2 weeks. And then my husband was like maybe $400 or $500 a week. So basically we would just use his checks to pay off everything. And then my checks were just going straight into the savings because we didn't need the extra money. But it's definitely harder. Like if you're already in like an apartment or a house, or and you're trying to get out of it and just trying to save money that way. Just start with something simple. Like right now we do as little as like $25 a week, because we're only on one income. So we're like, okay, so we can't afford to like put so much money away, but as long as we're putting something like just for a rainy day, just for our emergency fund, so $25 a week. And even though it's only $100 a month, but listen, that starts adding up. So, and then whenever we have extra money here and there, then we could do that. But it definitely does help, like income taxes in the beginning, like especially this year. I did a video on like how we used our income tax to lower our monthly expenses. We paid off stuff that we were paying off for years that we're like, we only had like a few $100s left to pay off. So we were like, okay, we're just going to use that. We're just going to pay it all off. And we were able to shave off $1,000 of monthly expenses from doing that. And then whatever was left from income tax, we just put it into that separate account. We kept that account, that like hidden account on the side. We just put it in there. And now we only use it for like for an emergency. Like my husband's tire blew out, so he had to get all new tires. And I was like, oh, God, I don't want to touch it, but whatever. That's what the money's for. So
don't you hate when you save emergency money and you have to use it for an emergency?
Right. And I'm like, damn. And I like just knowing that it's just there.
And I think it hit me the other day when I read or heard somebody say most Americans cannot afford, I don't know why I said Americans, I guess it was just American study, can't afford $1,000 emergency. And I'm like, you're right, I can't.
Yeah.
So I guess
definitely look into doing that account like that. It definitely helps, because not being able to transfer the money out, just do like if you have an extra $5-10 whenever you see it, like my whole thing is like, when Thursday comes around, you know you're gonna get paid on Friday. You're like, oh, I have like $40. Like, I'm gonna go out. I'm just gonna go spend it. Instead of spending it, be like, oh, I'm getting paid tomorrow, so I don't need this $40 right now, and then just transfer it and just get it out of your sight, basically. And
Yeah.
that's a good way that I would do it. I'm like, oh, I'm getting paid tomorrow.
The Time Tree app really helps me because I'm so terrible with paying bills. Like, they're just in the back of my mind until they get shut off.
Yeah.
Like, oh, let me pay it. But since using that and we share the calendar together on both of our phones, it's really helped like us keep track. Is there any like advice you would give us and our listeners that you wish you did when you were trying to buy a home? Like, now when you look back, is there anything that you would want to do differently or wish you knew or wish you did differently?
And low-key, I guess, don't regret anything that we did, because if you got to betray your realtor, just betray the realtor if they're not having your best interest. I guess that would be my main thing, was like, make sure because the realtor is going to get paid. So if they're going to get, if they really want the sale, they're really there to help you. Like, why would they, like, don't let them hold you back, basically. Like, if they're not giving you what you need and you know that you're ready, you have the money, you have everything, then seek out for more answers, ask more questions, like look up more information. I think the only thing that I regret about when we purchased this house was that we didn't, and this isn't even related to the money, is that we didn't really realize the location that we put it. It's like in a really busy street, and we didn't notice that it was a really, really busy street. And then having the kids and stuff like that, it's not like the funnest thing, because I feel every time I go outside, I have anxiety. I'm like, oh my God, like these cars are like going past here like 90 degrees. So pay attention to the location, because that's important, because that could affect you trying to buy another house. Because now we're probably going to end up trying to buy a house in like 3-4 years, basically, because we don't want the kids to stay in this area. So my husband right now, we were going to try to buy a duplex this year. So then that's another thing. When we bought the house, we bought it only under my name, because my husband's credit score wasn't where it's at. But that was also something that was suggested by the realtor, that if we didn't need to use him, don't use him, because if we wanted to buy a different property later on, we could buy it only under his name, and we can qualify for all the first-time home buying benefits, basically. So like, you get that low interest rate, you get approved for like a different type of loan that is like, I guess, like more forgiving. Like, it just has more benefits to it. So if I try to buy another house, it'll be under a conventional loan. So there's like a whole nother, like, it's like a whole different ball game, apparently. But we try to go and get pre-qualified for my husband to buy a house. And he went, and his score was fine. It took years, like 4 years, to finally get him above a 600. So his score was fine. His income was fine, because the mortgage is under my name, and like a lot of the stuff is like under my name. So it wasn't going to go under his debt to income ratio. But we find out that he had 2 student loans in collections that we had no idea about, which was what was holding him back years ago from it moving on, like from him being able to get approved. And they've been sitting there for almost 8 years, and they're like, they were only like, I think the total was like 5,000. But apparently, okay, so you can't buy a house with a student loan debt. You could buy a house with medical bills in collections. I had a lot. You could buy a house with that. You could buy a house with a bunch of other stuff in collections, but when it comes to student loans, they do not let you buy a house. So we talked to her. She was like, well, just contact the contact the, what's it called? Federal education, whatever. So we called them, and there's a 9-month program that you have to be a part of in order to get it removed from your collections and then be in good status to pay it. So we tried to do that in January. I've called a bunch of times. I've sent over all the information that they needed to like see how much his payments was going to be a month, and they have yet to start us on that program.
So what did you get approved for when you bought your home? Like first-time home buyers?
Yeah.
I guess you guys didn't use the program because you said you did save up for your down payment, but there is like another program that will actually like pay your down payment for you.
Yeah.
What it's called?
It's I think it was USDA.
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken. Is it USDA? Yeah. And then the area that I'm in you just have to check, because they have certain areas that they qualify for, like certain cities and regions and stuff. but I have a couple people who have told me that they use that and they cover the whole down payment. So my score when we went to go close on the house was 586. So it went up a whopping 4 points by the time I got pre-qualified to the time we closed. The final loan amount was 170,000. We needed exactly $6,783.21 for down payment. They tell you that you got that they accepted your offer. You have to go in and you put $1,000 down first as like a hold on the house, and then at the end of it you put the remaining amount. So in total was the 6,783, but then we needed 1,000 in the beginning, so we still had like 3 or 4 weeks. So I remember you asked me like how much money that left me to like actually like after we bought the house. We had like another 4 weeks to come up, like to save up more money to come up with the rest of the down payment. So when we went to go close the house, we needed the $5,783.
I really hate how intimidating they make it to buy a house. It's like this nonsense. Like there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
Before you speak to someone who actually first wants to help you and have been through it, you really like think like it's impossible. You know what I mean? It really seems unattainable, like something that's like, you know what I mean, really hard to have and get. I cannot believe that you bought a house with that credit score. The thing people say is like, if you don't have at least 10,000, just forget it.
Yeah.
Hey. Whoa. And that, yeah, no, I totally get that.
I have the whole payment of the house in your account. Forget about it.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy is I didn't even have the full amount yet. I think I only had like 4,000 in the account when I walked in to get pre-qualified. But I told him, I was like, oh, well, we're going to get our income tax in like 2 or 3 weeks. Like we're like, and I think at the time we were going to get back like 5,000 or something. We purposely got some more taxes taken out so that we can get a bigger return, because to try to save money that way, that was stupid. But we literally got the pre-qualification letter. 2 days later, we signed the contract, put the $1,000 down. 3 days later, we seen this house on, I think it was Zillow, and it was, the sellers were doing it privately, not through like another realtor, or like not giving it to like another brokerage or something. And we seen it, we like loved it. We put an offer in the parking lot, and then like 4 days later they approved the offer. But usually it takes a while to find your house, so you still have like time to save up that money. So even if you don't have the full amount when you're going in to like try to get pre-qualified, that won't affect whether or not like you could buy the house. You could still get pre-qualified.
How long did it take for you guys to close once you made your initial offer?
40 days.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 40 days.
I mean, some people months. That's crazy.
Years.
Like, I heard where like sometimes if they take too long, you can't use that loan that Haley was talking about anymore, the down payment, because if they approve you, say today, and if the owners take more than 60 days, it's not valid anymore.
Yeah, you get those restrictions. And then when they're monitoring the amount of paperwork, that's probably the most intimidating part, was the amount of paperwork they were requiring from me. And I had to go in like every week and like give them like all this, like either like pay stubs or statements from the bank. And then they would circle and like highlight every little thing that we spent money on in the bank statement. And I'm like, all I did was just go get a pastelillo for like $2. Like, why are they like circling this like on the thing? I'm like, what are you? And then they were like, do not make any cash deposits. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing anything crazy on the side. So I'm like, okay. So, monitoring. Yeah, no, that was probably the most intimidating part, because I was like, they're watching me. Like, I felt like
they're judging every purchase. My fry at McDonald's, they're gonna call me like.
Yeah, no, it was a lot. And then my husband had to sign something to get they require you to get signed papers from every landlord that you've had the past 5 years. And because I moved so many times, I had to like go to each place and like remember what the name of the landlord was. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember what her name was or what her number is. And each of them had to sign something and like state whether or not I like made the payments on time and all this stuff, how long I lived there. There was a place that only lived there for like 3 months. I needed her. 4 months, I needed him. Like that was probably the most intimidating part, but that's already under like when you're like pre-qualified. So you're like, okay, like we have the offer in the house. Now I just have to do what I have to do and like find all this information. But having good renters history definitely helped me, because I had this one specific, if it was for all those like 2-3 month places that I lived in, I probably they probably wouldn't have pre-qualified me because there wasn't enough history of like being able to make a payment that big on time. But there was one specific landlord that I lived under him for 3 years when I was 18 to 21 until me and Tommy got married. And he was like the key person to like making sure I had that like checked off. And I'm like, oh, thank God, because everybody else was like, yeah, well, she moved like every 3 months. So like, oh my God, that was annoying. That was very annoying. But my husband had to sign something that said, basically that said that all the money in the account belonged to me. And even when it was his income coming in, like he had to sign like, oh, she has every right to all this money in the account. And I'm like, it's my.
When you get arguing, you'd be like, remember what this paper said?
Yeah, I'm like, it's written down. Okay.
I'm the boss. Okay,
Yeah.
so I noticed like on your Instagram that you do have like family budget meetings every month.
Yes, I forgot about that.
I'm obsessed with it, and I'm really hoping that you I know we all here have like really bad ADHD and we can't stay focused and we want to do everything in the world because we're just good at everything. But let me stay humble. Anyway, so I was really hoping that you would make this like a monthly Zoom or a monthly like page or something so that like I could join or other people could join because
oh my gosh, that would be so fun. Hold on, I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, a Facebook page, Instagram page, a monthly meeting with everybody like on the internet, something. But yeah.
Oh my God, so we started them, I think it was like 3 months ago. I think we've already had 3. But I was always into like budgeting and stuff like that. Then my cousin like kind of like deep went like deep into it and like the YouTube like world of like budgeting and stuff like that. And then she wrote to me one day and she's like, hey, like I think I need this. Like let's do something that, you know, we like meet up, open, like we're completely open in these meetings. Like we tell each other like legit numbers, like show each other our exact income, our exact expenses. Like we're like, so whenever we have like a new person come in, we're like, just know that this is like a very open and safe environment. Like none of your business is going to be told like anywhere else. Like we do this solely for the purpose of being able to understand what your expenses are and like where it is exactly that you're struggling to like save money or whatever it is. And then when everything came out into light, I'm like, girl, I'm over here with like maybe $100 to spare at the end of the month. I mean, and there's other people that are in positions, they're just paying too much for like a bunch of unnecessary stuff. And we're like, oh no, okay, so you have 2 months to pay this off. You're gonna pay this. And I'm like, and then by the time that May comes around, like you're gonna have $600 like shredded off of your monthly expenses. Like, let's do it. Like, there's no need for you to have all this stuff. Like, let's pay it. So we keep each other accountable for the stuff that we need to pay. But we haven't had our meeting this month, and I'm like, I'm gonna slip, but I have to tell them I use my credit card. So I'm like, no, I gotta tell them that.
It's like a debt anonymous group. Would you be open to have like, I know you said it's your family, like, but in that area, would you be open to have like other people that would be interested? Because I know like income and sharing your income and your debt and stuff is so taboo and like people like are so private, but you have such a safe space. Like, would you really be open to other people joining?
Oh yeah, for sure. We just had my one of my friends join. So she was like, when her first meeting, she came with a little paper and thing, and she like walked out. She was like, oh my gosh. She's like, okay, like next month I'll come prepared. Yeah, we would definitely be open to having it like basically be like a community thing and having a bunch of people come in. The only thing that we ask is just be honest. Like that's what, because we want to keep it like honest and real, and like because we don't want anyone to feel some type of way or like you have a spending problem, like you a shopaholic. No, we're not pointing any fingers. We're just there to help each other. Like we're gonna figure this out. Like it's okay to have your spending money, and but you have to find that balance of how much to spend and how much to save.
I just think it's such a good idea, and I really want you to add this to your plate and make it a page so I can join it and be there every month and share my bad money spending. It's not even like I'm a shopaholic. It's just I'm really bad with money, and a lot of people are.
So how was it leaving your job, and what was like? Was there a turning point where you were like, well, I know you said that you had to stay home with your son. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I actually got laid off from my job. So it wasn't like a voluntary thing of me like quitting and staying home. It was in September of 2019. So they had told me, and then I find out that I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh my God, like we were already struggling finding a babysitter for my son. And I'm like, how the heck are we going to find a babysitter now with 2 kids? And then 3 days later, I find out, I think it's Saturday night, Monday, I go into work. They sit me down in the office and they're saying that because of everything going on, they were getting rid of my management position. I think it was 8 weeks. Like in 8 weeks, you have 8 weeks left. If you make it to the end of the 8 weeks, then you get, I think they gave me like 6 weeks of like severance or something like that. Okay, so I have 3 months basically to figure out what the heck I'm gonna do. As I stayed home, I was like, wow, I don't really want to do this. Like I was struggling, like mentally, I was struggling because I'm like, how do you go from being like, I've never not worked since I was 16 years old. So like doing all that to like being forced to stay home because I lost my job and there's no one to watch my son. So it took a while for my mentality to shift from, wow, I have to do this versus like, oh, I can do this and I can do something for me too. Like obviously take care of kids is very time consuming. But I found those little gaps and those little moments. I found my rhythm and I was like, oh, I was like, I do have time to like, do something else. Like, let me just figure out what I want to do all like, because when I'm into something, like I'm into it. And I felt like I was just giving so much of myself to other people. And I'm like, why am I not just giving all that energy, that time and energy for something for myself? So it took a while. It took a lot of mental dips to finally like have something click and be like, just use this time to figure out what you want to do. So then I started YouTube, and then I slowly realized that my other passions, which was going to the thrift store and like doing little DIY projects here and there. And then I was like, I started realizing that that was also like another lane that I could go into. I'm like, oh, like people actually like watch this stuff. Like people are very interested in like when I painted my wall. And I'm like, I didn't think it was like, like something like out of this world. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna record myself doing that. Like what? Like who's gonna watch that? And then I started watching other people doing it. I'm like, oh my God, this is actually really interesting.
I was going to ask you, did you have a moment where you were like, this could really work? Like, do you remember that moment where you're like, babe, I really think, I got something going here?
I think it was like one day I randomly, I think it was like 3 months me being into YouTube. I don't know where the idea came from of me painting the basement. I think we probably were just like, oh, we need like space like for something. We just need more space in the house. So I was like, I woke up one day and I was like, you know what? Like, what if I just redid the basement? And I'm like, I just gotta paint the ceiling. I just gotta paint the walls. Like, it's just paint. Like, I could do that. Like, it's just paint. If I would have known that this video was gonna get all the views that it got, I would have actually looked cute in these videos. Oh my gosh. So that was my turning point, was when I did the first video. And I realized, like, I think all my other ones were getting like 100 to 200 views, which is like my average, like 100 and 200 views. But this basement video, like within like 2 weeks, it was already like almost at 1,000 views. And I was like, is this it? Like, is this really gonna like be like a thing? And then I kept doing it. And then the part 2 was the one that like basically took off.
Yeah, does the second one have?
I think it's at like 32,000 right now. Yeah, it's that was the most one. Yeah, it's my most viewed one out of all of them, but the whole series, I think it's 7 parts. Yeah, 7 parts. The whole series has over 70,000 views. And I was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Now you want to redo everything, right? Okay, next.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, now I look at every room like, like what am I gonna do to this one?
So if there's anything that you can leave our audience with, what would it be?
I don't know.
Like a piece of advice. Like what would be like your main piece of advice? You can give them advice from the house buying and the DIYing if you want to.
Yeah. So I think my main thing is that you don't get caught up on just being one thing. Like as far as like, I feel like there's like a stigma that if you're a stay-at-home mom, that's all you are. Like that you're a stay-at-home mom. That's it. Like, no, like my main thing was, no, I can be a stay-at-home mom, but I can also be me. Like I can also still have time for me and do something for me. So now I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I do work from home too. Like I'm not just just, and they say just too, like it's easy, but like just to stay at home mom, like just take that time to really, if you are a stay-at-home mom, try to find those little pockets, those times and windows where the kids are entertained or they're sleeping or whatever, to do something that you love, to invest that time in yourself. And it may not seem like anything at the moment, but in the long run, like it could really, you know, be a turning point in your life. Because I would have never thought when I started my channel a year ago that 11 months later I would be where I'm at right now. And like I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I don't have it all figured out. I don't have like it all planned out to a T, but I'm winging it. Listen, that's what motherhood and life is. Like we're winging it every single day. But as long as I do something little, like small every single day to progress, then I'm good with that. And yeah, just keep going. Just keep going. Something little today might be a big game changer later on.
And let me remind everyone listening that you're a stay-at-home mom and people belittle you. There's people out there who get paid for what we do, like babysitters, daycares, nannies, schools. What's the difference? That's what really gets me caught up in my brain. I'm like,
they treat that as a job.
I mess with Sean and I'm like, where's my paycheck for the week? Where's my paycheck? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, if I was at a job right now, we would be paying somebody to watch these kids. So where's my...
On top of that, they're not doing laundry. They're not doing 3 meals a day. They're not the housekeeper. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is.
And I hate when I tell someone I stay at home with the kids, because I go on and off all the time. And they're just like, oh, you just stay home? Just.
Right.
I think also when it comes to when you're staying home, or even if you're working and you still want to have like your own thing, your own business, whatever, I think a lot of people give up too easily and they're not consistent. And when they don't see what they expected, like their expectations are not coming to life, they give up. But we can't keep putting those expectations on ourselves. We just, if that's really what you want to do, that's really what you love, then you're going to keep on doing it. No matter who's watching, who's buying, who's not, like, you know what I mean? You're just going to keep on going. And you're the perfect example of that.
Thank you guys so much for having me on here. I was so nervous.
I do want to say that you inspired me to continue my YouTube, because like I started it and then I just stopped out of nowhere, but it was doing really well for the time being. And I'm like, she's really kicking ass in such a little bit of time. You know, just so happy for you. I love people really like pursuing their dreams and doing something. And you were consistent. It didn't happen overnight. You know what I mean? You spent that whole year. You keep saying in a year, but that's a really long time to not give up on something when you're, like Haley said, getting a little bit of views. You didn't worry about that. It's what made you happy. You wanted to do it. You stayed consistent, and it paid off, and it's paying off. And I am happy for you. I'm proud of you. I hope that.
Imagine your account in like 2 more years. Like,
oh my gosh, no.
Like, well, we need a meeting with her. Schedule us a meeting, please.
We'll stop posting it.
Yes, I can't wait. We're all gonna be big in 5 years. We got this. We're gonna be your YouTube's gonna blow up. Your marketing, all that stuff is gonna blow up. Haley's gonna be this like TikTok famous, so she won't be able to go outside without somebody wanting to take a picture with her.
I hope not though, because I don't even want to do makeup and clothes. Like, I'm not picture ready. Maybe when I get some money, I'll be able to dress the way I want to, you know, like do my hair and makeup every day.
Girl, this the last time I did my makeup and my hair, that I don't even remember. I be looking crazy in my YouTube videos. And I posted this. The first thing I think about was like, damn, all my husband's exes are probably looking at this like he married her. And I'm like, listen, I'm not gonna put makeup on to record. Like, it's fake. I'm not just gonna wear makeup just to wear it around the house. Like, first of all, it's a waste of product.
real videos, real people, real stories, real everything. That's authentic, and it just does something to my soul. All right, thank you, Alyssa, so much for pouring into our listeners and ourselves. Please tell everyone right now like where they can find you.
Yes, okay, so my YouTube channel is Alyssa Rodriguez, just my name, but then on Instagram it's A_Rod3696, and then the link to my YouTube is in my bio.
All right, you heard it there. So you guys go check her out, go follow her. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode. We really hope that these episodes have been inspiring, helpful, loaded with information to help you flourish. There is room for everyone at the table. Join us next week to pick apart the brains of two successful women as we unlock how chasing your dreams becomes a reality. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.